So now let's get to the next point of the agenda, which is our general PS resolution. And I will ask Andreas Schieder, Secretary of State for Finance in Austria, and also chair of our Economic and Financial Network in the PES, to come to the stage to present the resolution.
Thank you, Philip. Good afternoon, good evening, dear comrades. I have the honor to present this general resolution, which is mainly dealing with all the economic issues which we are reading since 3 years in the newspaper. And before going into the details, just shortly let me say some important things which are mixed up in the conservative camp, because we are still in the same crisis which started in 2008. It's still the crisis which started by the reason of deregulated financial markets, which, let's say, exploded and also gave a threat to the economy and finally also to our society's social security and also to the debt issue of the sovereign states. But it was not overconsumption or something like this, like conservatives want to tell us. It was the deregulated markets which drove us into this crisis. And looking at this, it is important to have regulation. It is important to solve also the problems, of course, to have a stabilizing mechanism, stabilizing and future stability orientation in our societies and in Europe. But also we know that we need growth in order to also tackle all the issues. And without growth, we will even end up in a deeper problem like we started before. And also let me say, I think it's very important that we proudly stand also side by side by the European social model, because it is the social security which prevented us for a deeper crisis even, and we should not forget now also that the social security is one of the most important targets which we have to keep also for the future in Europe. And saying this, we have to say that women are one of the part of the society which are hard affected by the economic crisis, which is also worked out by the PS women, but we all see in our societies. And secondly, also, it's the young people. We cannot accept to have a youth unemployment of 50-30% and things like this. This is the next dangerous, explosive situation in our society, and we should immediately make Europe also look on this problem. Saying all this, I think it is also important to point out that we are lacking also a political crisis, because we have leaders in Europe which are not capable to solve the problems, and as long as it is an afternoon walk between Sarkozy and Mrs. Merkel without any decisions, also Europe will not come out of the crisis where it is now. Our resolution says, which is, let's say, written also in the spirit of we need more Europe and not less Europe. We need more Europe and not more nation states. It says we need an investment plan for green growth, jobs, social and territorial cohesion. And it's also giving, let's say, some numbers like with 210 billions of public and private investments annually, entailing an increase of 1.1 percentage point for public investments, which would create 12 million new jobs over the next 10 years. Secondly, also, of course, we need a democratic Springer. This is said here for the financial sector. This means all the issues which we worked out in the last years, like financial transaction tax, regulation, transparency in the financial markets, supervisory European banking authorities and things like this. And this is important that we look also on this when we speak about stabilizing. And of course, there is a stronger and more democratic system of economic governance. And this, of course, will be also the future debate in Europe and probably also among us in the socialist camp, because there is the creativity of also the plan for the future in all these points. So what we say in the resolution is EFSF to be directly refinanced by the ECB, a Eurozone stability agency which we call for, which could also include the possibility to issue Eurobonds, but also we have to say since decades we are pushing for these structure bonds, and it is also necessary to have these structure bonds for investment in Europe. Also placing these reforms in the framework of broader common economic and a social strategy, mutual surveillance, fiscal responsibility, and the social model with the European interference on the without European interference on national wage policy. Because I think in this paragraph is also a very important debate, because conservatives try over the crisis also to lift down the wages and social security Europe. And fourthly, also is about a united Europe on the global stage, to be a European voice in the IMF, in the World Bank, in the UN, and in all the other economic structures. We could add OECD and all the other bodies which are also discussing all the policy measures. So this is in a nutshell this resolution, which is mainly tackling the critical points of Europe. But I think at the PS Council we should also use the occasion to be proud on what we achieved, even if economic and society situation doesn't look like as we have achieved much. But we have to say, without the PS, we would not have any discussion on regulation on hedge funds and private equity. Without the PS, we would not have all the other regulation, European Stability Board, Banking Authority, and things like this. And we have to say, without the PS, we would not have a European Commission which at least put on the agenda financial transaction tax. And we have to say also that this was a year-long, very complicated work with experts, trade unionists, economists, transcontinental, also with the American, which was done by Paul Nyrup Rasmussen. Mainly, he was the driving force. And we have to say also on this point, without Paul, this idea of an FTT would not be so close to be a realistic one. And therefore, also we have to say, it's clear with good work, we also can reach what we want to achieve politically, but also we have to say, Paul, thank you for this work in the name also for maybe in the future more stabilized and paying financial markets.
Thank you very much, Andreas. I have 4 speakers who have requested the floor, and the first one is Jesus Caldera from PSOE Spain.
Let me speak in Spanish. Thank you very much. Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Just one issue regarding how we deal in this resolution with the financial crisis. I know that it's a summary, but here we say that the financial system failed because of greed. No, the financial system didn't fail due to greed. No. The financial system failed due to the lack of regulation, of standards. Greed is something that goes along with the human being. Since the very beginning, we try to standardize our behavior to avoid this greed to develop, but this means that the financial system has failed because there's been a lack of rules. There's been a deregulation that has allowed the behavior, or that behavior. Those behaviors, unfortunately, will always exist, but for that we need rules to avoid that link between deregulators and managers of the financial system went and led to this lack of regulation. So this is not an ethical document. We should solve the problems, and therefore we have to put the real reasons why there's been failure in the system, and I repeat, it's due to the lack of rules. And thank you very much.
Gracias, Jesus. Our next speaker is Zita Gormai, President of PS Women.
Thank you very much. It is an honor to speak after a former Minister of Social Affairs who published the booklet on equalities and is a great feminist as a socialist. So I'm really very pleased to say hello for him. So, about this draft general resolution, first of all, I believe that we worked very hard on this resolution. This is a well-balanced document, which means we really try to put an attention on every little corner, I would say. And as I believe that this document also shows that the European Socialist Party is responsible for ordinary citizens, because we are the party of women, men, vulnerable, disabled, Roma, and all minorities. So that's why we have to make sure that this document is very much for all of us. And of course, you can see the fingerprint of Paul, because Paul was so much engaged to make it clear that there is a way out of this economic, financial, and I would go further, moral crisis what we have in Europe, because I believe that there is a moral crisis, and we have to work very hard, because our members, a lot of them became individuum instead of believing in society as such. So that's why I believe that was really the right time when PES invited this convention with 2,000 people, just to show that we are very much for you, and that is, this document also shows that. And of course, as PS Women, this is not by chance that you find the women's in this document, because the European Socialist Party believes in gender equality as a core value, and that's why I believe that we have to fight for gender equality, as you know that the crisis had a cut on women's rights all around Europe, because austerity cuts really cut women in the decision makings and of course on labor market and on other issues. And of course it is also very important what Kaisa mentioned. We are responsible for the youth, because 25% of the young people in Europe are unemployed. So we really need the strategy, and that's why I'm very, very thankful that we have a working group to work on that. So let's make it clear that this document is very well prepared. We worked on very, very hard, and I can make sure that youth and women were deeply engaged to be in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zita. Next speaker, João Ribeiro, the new International Secretary of our Portuguese Socialist Party. Welcome.
Chair, comrades, I'll be very brief. And I would ask you to consider this as a declaration of vote on the resolution. We will vote for the resolution because it's, for sure, a step in the good direction, not on the right direction, but on the good direction. But let me say it is also a disappointed vote. This declaration falls short for us, and it's not enough, especially in what concerns economic governance. We feel we are in the middle of the bridge. We either go forth or we go back. And it's time to decide. And this resolution is not strong enough. It does not go as far as it should on this matter. Nevertheless, we will work more and harder to help build a stronger and common position on a democratic economic governance system. In this sense, and in that sense, I think this is the time and the place to tell you that our party in Portugal will open the debate and openly debate federalism. And with the word federalism, with no other word than it. Because for us, federalism would allow us to regain democratic control of Europe. So federalism for us means democracy. And we want more Europe. And more Europe is not with words, it's with a strong agenda and a clear agenda and an institutional discussion that goes beyond what we have done until now. So I want to assure you all that PS will do on this matter, and from now on, its part on our common debates. Finally, this declaration could and should go further, and hopefully, in the near future, we will have a stronger position. Thank you.
Thank you, João. Our next speaker is Urban Ahlin, member of the presidency of the PES from SAP Sweden.
Thank you very much, Philip, and thank you very much, comrades. I can underline what several speakers before me have said, that this resolution has been very well drafted, written, rewritten, and discussed in the presidency. And we, from the Swedish Social Democratic Party, is also happy with the result. And of course, not all member parties of Party of European Socialists can be happy with everything. But anyhow, this is a step forward where we are taking a common position to strengthen the role of the society in a world where global capitalism is getting stronger. And we are afraid of that actually this global market economy is so strong now, pushing back wages and labor and workers to the bottom. And then we are concerned that there is one thing lacking in the resolution, and that is the mentioning of trade unions. So we would like to add a piece in the last page, a sentence saying that we would like a way, so it's a third sentence, a third paragraph from the last page, a way where trade unions get the legitimate right to bargain for collective agreements with fair pay for decent jobs. Because we think this is, I mean, the resolution is about the Party of European Socialists, absolutely. It's very much focusing on what we politically can do to achieve things. But we cannot forget that there is no chance for our workers and civil servants or public servants in this world to have decent wages if they don't have strong trade unions, and we should stand up for their rights for collective bargaining. There is also one other thing that we Swedish Social Democrats has been a little bit disappointed with in this resolution, and we have asked for it earlier in the presidency. And it has been, when it was not rewritten, it was in there a sentence on the knowledge-based economy. Because we think it's very important that we give a clear message to the population that we want to compete in this global world, but we don't want to compete with lower wages and worse conditions. We would like to compete in the knowledge-based economy with knowledge, that way being it possible for us to increase wages and so on. So here is on the fourth, there we would like to have where it says there is a hunger for a new direction. We would like to add a direction where a knowledge-based economy is striving with lifelong learning for all citizens. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Urban. We have one last speaker, and then we'll come to the vote on the amendments and on the text. And the last speaker is Juan Fernando López Aguilar, member of the PS presidency from Spain.
Thank you, Philippe. Hello. Good evening, dear friends. I'm proud to take the floor before you as head of the Spanish delegation to show strong support for the wording of this general resolution of the PS conference, this PS convention we are celebrating here in Brussels. And I would like to address the bottom line of this general resolution. The bottom line is that we are facing crisis here. The worst crisis the European Union has ever known, and the worst crisis social democracy has ever known in the European Union history. And there is a reason why. The reason why is Europe is in the wrong hands. Europe is in the wrong direction. Europe is heading a wrong strategy and enduring a wrong recipe. And of course, this crisis started as a financial crisis, as a bank crisis. Then it made an impact on the real economy and had a terrible social impact, destroying millions of jobs across Europe. But it's turned out to be political. It's a political crisis. This is the point that I wouldn't like to be missed in the wording of this resolution, which is highly concentrated on the economic and financial dimension of the crisis. It is political. It's political because it's having this asymmetry within the European Union economy and the European Union finances, even in the Eurozone, having a political asymmetrical impact. Asymmetrical impact, and it's hurting the most our voters. It's hurting the most, therefore, the social democracy across Europe. And the point being that we need to react together by sending a very strong and clear message. Together, because the response is not to be laid on the hands of an individual capacity of reaction. It is not a systematic, it is not by voluntarism that we're going to get out of here. It is by acting together, responding together in a systematic manner with a new strategy in order to win back Europe and get Europe back to work. That is the point. Of course, the bottom line is, yes, it started as a financial crisis because of the lack of regulation, the lack of rules, the lack of principles, the lack of transparency, and the lack of responsibility. We have to set rules, but we have to do it through political means. So the first imperative message for social democracy across Europe is not only responding to the financial and economic dimension of the crisis, but also responding to the political dimension of the crisis by reaffirming and reassuring our political statement and significance. Many voters have been systematically invited to distrust from politics, to run away from politics. Our voters are on the rampage or on the runaway, many of them in panic. Spain is a good signal of it. I'm so sorry to be here this week, few days after a historical defeat of the Socialist Party in Spain, but we must share the reasons. Voters, progressive, left-wing voters, social democratic voters are being instigated and systematically invited to distrust and run away from politics. So this political impact of the financial crisis is to be addressed through a political response. We've been campaigning all across Europe. Our voters have told us time and time again, why didn't you say that before? They must know we have said it time and time again. They have not listened enough. They have not heard of us enough. It is time that we say it loud. We say it together on a systematic ground. We say it strong enough so that we can be heard. Let's get Europe back. Let's get Europe back to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me now give the floor to Andreas Schieder to guide us through the amendments.
Okay, thank you, comrades, also for the contributions in the debate, which also shows that we have to push even more, like more even than we wrote in the resolution. And anyway, the next years will be struggling years. Just to come to the two amendments which were brought in by the Swedish party, which the one is saying aware where the trade unions get the legitimate right to bargain for collective agreements with fair pay to the decent job, and the second amendment which is about the knowledge-based society. So if you agree, we can simply vote on these two amendments, which anyway do not put any contradiction to the documents, which is just, let's say, giving them even more content. So maybe first, I don't know how the statutes are. First we vote on the amendments and then we vote on the resolutions with the amendments probably. So who is in favor for the two amendments? Is anybody against these two amendments to be amended? So perfect. Then we can vote on the resolution including the two amendments. Who is in favor of this resolution? Anybody against? 2, 4, 5.
Sorry, Andreas. Before voting on the resolution itself, we had from the PS presidency the UK Labour Party who announced that under the Article 17.6 of our statutes, the UK Labour Party declares itself non-bound by this general resolution. This is a right for sort of any member party in the PES. This party has an opt-out of the general resolution. Now we can vote with this opt-out on the resolution itself.
So sorry, it was not a try to, let's say, take the British from the backside. I didn't know on this. So now we can vote with the opt-out information and by the British comrades. So who is in favor of this resolution? Who is voting against? Any abstentions? So it's adopted with a clear vote, but with the opting out of the British friends. Thank you, comrades.